What you need is the spark of belief and confidence. What you need is someone to actually take you to a new level. But you have to define what that rich life looks like. If you let me define it, I will find greatness in you. I will look for the greatness in you. I will literally develop a plan that will make you greater than you ever dreamed you could be. You'll believe it. But if you don't define where it stops, people like me just keep helping you go. And that doesn't help you at all. Where you are right now is right where you're supposed to be. I say that all the time. But don't ever think that what you defined as rich early in your life is usually or is the same as what it will be when you're 20 years earlier. It's the old thought process that at 18 to 25 you think you've got it all figured out. What is the secret to not being broke? The secret to not being broke is about creating a rich life. But when I say rich, I don't mean rich like money. I mean rich like, what does rich actually mean to you? What is a perfect day? What do you want to do with your life? Who do you want to be? Who are you going to spend your time with? If you were living a rich life, what does that look like? Most people that spend their time thinking about how broke they are spend their time in a broke mindset. I love this story. It's been told a lot of different ways, but this is my version of it. There is the rich CEO, and he's making tons of money, and he's busy, and he barely has time for anything, so he books himself a 2-week vacation. And him and his family go out, and every morning he gets up before everybody because he's used to waking up early, and he sits on the beach by himself, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and every morning he just watches the world go in front of him. He reads, he thinks, he sees this one fisherman every day. And after about 5 or 6 days, he talks to the fisherman. And the fisherman goes out every morning and comes back every evening. And he has a certain amount of fish and he's fairly successful. But the fisherman simply is fishing to eat for the day. There's really nothing else that fisherman is doing. He's not fishing to make a living. He's fishing to eat. And so the CEO says, I can help you. I can help you. And I don't know anything about this because I love helping people help define their why. But I can relate to the story so much. I can help you, he says. And he says, you could probably have a second boat, couldn't you? And the fisherman says, well, why would I want a second boat? And he says, well, if you have a second boat, you could bring in double the amount of fish. Where do you sell your fish? And he goes, oh, if I have extra, we sell to the market or we feed other families in the area and they pay me. But ultimately, if you had 2 or 3 boats, think of all the fish you'd be bringing in and the extra money you'd be making. And the fisherman goes, well, what does that mean? And he goes, well, if you had 2 or 3 boats, you'd be able to not have to go fish at all. You could sit right here and manage it. And then eventually, it could continue to grow. Maybe 3 becomes 6 boats. And the fisherman says, well, what do I do when I have 6 boats? And he goes, we might be able to connect you with actually shipping some of the fish to other markets, different markets. And so they're on this beautiful beach and the fisherman continues to go out every day and come back. But the fisherman finally says, he goes, well, what am I actually going to do? And the businessman, the CEO, is sitting there describing this great setup of how he can help this guy amplify his life, amplify his money, amplify everything in his world through the lens of financial success. And the fisherman says, I really don't see why I would do that just so I could come and spend 2 weeks sitting on the beach doing exactly what you're doing when I get to do this every single day. I wake up, I fish, I come home. The relaxation that I have every day is the relaxation that you try to fit into your life for 2 weeks. And there was just this major aha moment for the businessman, right? And maybe the aha moment to the fisherman who in the beginning was enthralled with the conversation. See, if you haven't defined what a rich life really means to you, you're already living broke. Because a rich life doesn't mean my version of rich. It's your version of rich. And to some people, it's waking up every day wearing what they want, going to eat breakfast at a certain place, having time with their family, not missing anything that they deem important. What defines a rich life has nothing to do with money at all. It really has to do with the money doing what you need it to do only. It's about defining the richness of your day, the richness of your future, what it means to not be broke. Most people walk through life defining broke as not having enough money, but they don't actually spend the time creating a goal or vision for their life. They don't actually spend the time identifying what would they do if they had more. Many a times in my office, people come in and they say, if I only made X amount of money, everything would be fine. We could do everything we're doing now, plus we could go on a couple vacations a year. I'd be able to cover the kids' college, I'd be able to do this, and it's just this amount of money. 5 years later, they make well more than that amount of money. They come back in and they say the same thing. If I only made this much money, I would be able to do X and Y. And I always have tried to reframe people down to the things that are most important. I'll never forget a conversation I had one time where somebody was hating their life, hating their job, hating everything about what they were doing, but they had adult children living in their home. And all the money they were earning was going to pay for the adult children who were not sailing on their own, if you will. And so all their self-hate and their unhealthiness and their frustration was all coming from them working longer than they should have, because they could have retired, they could have stopped, they could have changed their trajectory. But in the conversation, I simply asked the question, what's worth more to you, money or time? And they were almost floored. And I said, well, the way I figure it is you're working and you're making six figures only to cover your adult children to live in your house or on your dime. And you hate your job and you hate your life right now and you have no time to spend with your grandchildren. So wouldn't it be better to make a little less money, make them go out on their own and actually do something for themselves? And then on top of that, you have all the time in the world to spend with your grandchildren, to teach them the things that you love, to show them what you love to do. This is helping someone define what rich means to them, and it's not just about the money. Yes, it's ridiculous to think that money isn't a part of freedom, okay? Yes, unless you're the fisherman living in a small village in maybe Sicily, and you wake up every day and you fish to eat and you go home and you live in a very small place and there's no rent because your parents have owned it for generations. Yes, we know that's not normal. It's especially not normal here. But the reality is, until you define what your rich life is, if your rich life is fishing every day, it doesn't cost a ton of money to do that. You don't have to be a multi-millionaire to fish every day. But if you want to deep sea fish on a big boat with an entire crew every single day, you probably need to earn more money. And that's a goal, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nobody defines rich but you. I can tell you this, if you let me define it, I will find greatness in you. I will look for the greatness in you. I will exploit the greatness in you. I will literally develop a plan that will make you greater than you ever dreamed you could be. You'll believe it. But if you don't define where it stops, people like me just keep helping you go. And that doesn't help you at all. Because the reality is, what you need is the spark of belief and confidence. What you need is someone to actually take you to a new level. But you have to define what that rich life looks like. Here's the other secret. A rich life has to run a cycle. Where you are right now is right where you're supposed to be. I say that all the time. But don't ever think that what you defined as rich early in your life is usually or is the same as what it will be when you're 20 years earlier. It's the old thought process that at 18 to 25 you think you've got it all figured out. But when you wake up at 40, there's nothing about what you thought about 18 to 25 that's really probably close to where you think a rich life would be at 40. What you think changes. Wisdom changes you. Experience changes you. Rich is a cycle. And at different cycles of your life, you need more and sometimes you need less. Sometimes you need one trip a year just to reset. At other times in your life, you need more. Sometimes you're going through a transition with your spouse, and maybe the kids are getting out of the house now for the first time ever, and you now have to redefine what rich means to your relationship. This isn't just a one-time thing. It's a redefining, a refresh, and it needs to be thought of on a regular basis. But if you don't control it, someone else will. Your spouse will control it, your partner will control it, your friends will control it. But you define what rich means to you. If rich means waking up at the beach every day and going surfing and living in a little bungalow on the beach, eating ramen noodles and hanging out, that's awesome. I could do that for a couple of days. I would love that for a couple of days. I couldn't do that the rest of my life. I got to sprint. I got to run. I got to move, right? I know what defines rich to me. And I'm willing to change as I grow, as I learn, as my priorities become less about me and more about my family. As I watch my children grow, as I watch my wife and I's relationship grow, rich takes on new meanings. But let me tell you what, broke is a mindset. Broke is only where you are thinking that you're stuck. And if you think the word broke, you are not seeing any level of opportunity in your life. You have not defined what rich means, and you have not gone after the action steps that it takes to start moving yourself to that next level. Rich is no different if you just define it. You can achieve it, but you have to think it's possible. You have to run towards your goals. And at the end of the day, being broke is actually about creating a plan of what living a rich life. What does true freedom mean to you? If you can do that, you can avoid the word broke your entire life. Because that guy on the beach that had all the money in the world, looking at that fisherman, probably thought he was broke. But he actually defined richness quite clearly to him. He confidently said, this is what I live for every day, and I'm comfortable, and I love it. While you work all year to have this for 2 weeks. There's no right or wrong answer to that. But what does rich mean to you? How do you avoid being broke? Think about that. It's something that will resonate with you, and it will alter your mindset to a point of growth and wisdom and opportunity. Broke is a mindset of negativity, brokenness, failure, problems. Change it. And it's amazing what you'll find. Thanks for watching when we talk about creating a rich life and not being broke anymore. Mindset is something we correlate to money all the time. Life plus wealth is optimization. If you like these videos, subscribe, like, share, and tune in for more because there's plenty more where this came from.